and Dr. Kenan McKenzie,
Here.
Ms. Kimberly Coelho,
Here.
and Mayor Michael Cahill,
Here.
Ms. Karen Robinson,
Here.
Ms. Lorinda Visnick,
Here.
and I'm Rachel Abel. It is our pleasure to have you with us this evening. As we get into this evening, I hope you had a good visit with many of our schools. You didn't quite get to see all of them today, but I understand you got to visit each level. If you want to open with an opening statement, maybe reflect on your visit today or why Beverly, we'd appreciate it. And then we're going to go around with questions.
Thank you, President Abel. First of all, I want to thank each of you for taking the time to hear about me and my qualifications tonight. And as I open to anyone watching, I want to thank you for if you were an educator that I've worked with in the past, my family who has supported me tirelessly, especially my wife, my mother, my now 3 kids. So I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody who has been part of the teams that I have worked with over my career to take schools to greatness. I want to take a moment also to say that today was an absolutely amazing day in the district. It was really great to start at the preschool and to see those amazing young kids, to see them learning and working with their teachers and their paraprofessionals, to see them as they took me around their classrooms. When I asked for a smock to do the sensory lesson that they were doing, I was told I'm too big, which was fine. And I wasn't quite sure if I'd need a lift to get up off the ground sitting crisscross applesauce. But it was a really amazing, enlightening experience. It was really amazing to see a student who is in a sub-separate classroom moving from, as the teacher said, ripping apart books to doing dialogical reading, and to see that step forward. It was really great walking around with the director of that program and hearing in her voice the love, compassion, and understanding that she has for her students and her staff. I then went over to the Hannah Elementary School and got an amazing tour with the principal of that school. I commended her for her button recognizing transgender youth, and really got held up in that moment, because those to me are some of our population that we need to make sure, especially in this climate, we are supporting and guarding and protecting. Walking around and taking time in several third grade classrooms, one to sit down and do a read along with them, and then the second classroom where they were still learning in wit and wisdom about the Apollo 11 mission. And it was a little bit of a proud moment to share that my parents had offered to go to Disney, or if I could go to space camp when I was 13 years old, and I chose to go to Space Academy Level 1. But to really share that experience with them, and from Jack and Ty and Mackenzie and so many of the students that I met in that classroom today, while I definitely hope I'm your successful candidate to lead the Beverly Public Schools into the future, those students will stay with me. They had smiles on their face. You could tell their teacher was invested. You could tell how much they loved what they were doing. And then from there, went back to central office, had a really great meeting where I probably talked a little bit too much, but that's who I am. My authentic self is to let people know who I am, to build relationships, to build strong bridges to the future so that we can be successful for our students. And I was very impressed with the leadership team of principals that I met with today, as well as others. I spent the last several weeks watching almost every single school committee meeting for, I'd say, the last 18 months. Some of them were definitely at 1.3 and 1.5 speed to get them, but I really wanted to understand the curriculum work that's been done in CISL. I wanted to understand the work that's done in the F&F, Finance and Facilities meetings. I wanted to understand how the district operates. I am fully invested in this opportunity. I have cultivated my career over the past, I'd say since I started out as a substitute teacher in Lynn Public Schools, was then asked to teach by the principal of Lynn Classical, was asked to become a teacher and teach I was then unfortunately bumped and bitted around the system in my hometown and took a full year off to go and be an intern at Brighton High School, 4 days a week, and then supervise pre-practicum teachers for Boston College the other day. But I invested myself not in a partial internship, a full internship in one of Boston's major high schools. I've really tried to cultivate my career and accept opportunities to be ready for this exact position. Why Beverly also? Well, 9 years ago, I was a finalist to be the principal of Beverly High School. And it was definitely a sad day when I was not awarded that position, because I think I could bring real change. I believe that my ability to work with people, to build teams, and I'll talk about that later on, I think. But as a former athlete, to build teams, to build collaboration, and to set goals and achieve them is how I've worked. It's how I've worked when I was asked to become the principal of a middle school when I had no experience in middle school. But I reached across the hallways to teacher classrooms. Finally, my day brought me here. After a meeting with Dr. Chirokchek, my day brought me here to this beautiful middle school. And I spent a lot of time also driving around the district over the last several weeks to just get a view of the schools, to understand where they are. I am so impressed, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about it later. I am so impressed with the solar panels and the green initiatives. It's definitely a significant amount of the work that I'm doing in Medford right now. But I think my experiences, real experiences, all right, hard fought, working in districts that are underfunded, working in districts in rural poverty, working in Medford, that I think has so many corollaries to Beverly, corollaries of poverty and wealth, socioeconomic and diversity issues that we together can work to make a better tomorrow. Obviously, you know my name's Peter Cushing, but I hope that it'll be Superintendent Peter Cushing for the Beverly Public Schools, and we can work together to build a flagship district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that people come to Beverly to see. Thank you for that opening.
Thank you so much for those remarks. I'm now going to ask Ms. Visnick to ask our first question.
Beverly is a rapidly growing community. We have rising enrollment. How will you ensure that all segments of the community are active and engaged? And in what ways do you intend to solicit the community's feedback?
So one fairly direct way is to solicit survey feedback from families, but I think that only goes so far. In Medford, when we were reopening schools, one of the things that we did was we set up committees. We invited families to be a part of that. We invited caregivers to be a part of that. We invited educators to be a part of those reopening committees. I think as Beverly is looking to move forward into the future, we should almost see it as a reopening, a reinvigorating of our school district, that we should be having forums for families, caregivers, and community members, staff members to all come together, and students. So I would propose, I've had forwarded to you all my entry plan. It talks about 3 phases of really getting to know and understand the district, meeting with families. It is having one-on-one conversations, Ms. Visnick. It is working to make sure that I'm available to families, not just in fluff situations of waving and saying hello, but having real conversations. Tonight, I didn't walk up to the 5th grade bingo just to get the pizza and the water from my dinner. I went up there to introduce myself to families. I went up there to introduce myself to the community. And I almost wanted to take the microphone and, do "It's a great day to be a Panther." But back to the question at hand, all right? I think we need to establish a day of dialogue where we bring people together, be it at the Cabot or the Field House or wherever it may be, where we invite people in. We ask them their opinions, their thoughts. We start building elements of a strategic plan that takes the district improvement plan to the next level, but a 5-year strategic plan where we articulate goals, we establish what we need to achieve those goals, and we create further opportunities. In my previous work and currently in Medford as well, we need to actively reach out, especially to marginalized populations. We need to make sure that translation services and interpretation services are available for families. I found that Zoom is one great way to connect with families, but I don't think anything beats the opportunity to say, the superintendent will be at Panera Bread, or the superintendent will be at this location for an evening dessert or a morning coffee, to invite people into the schools or wherever it is. We can't expect families to come to us with how busy they are. We must go to them. We must reach out and actively be in their communities, be in their apartment complexes, be in their neighborhoods, and really reach out to them. That's work that we've done. In Medford, I mentioned our reopening plan that talked about making sure that we had community voice and we had these listening sessions on Zoom. I think that those would be really important, but it needs to be solid, authentic, two-way communication that brings people's ideas, thoughts, and concerns to the forefront. Regardless if they're members of our staff, members of the community, we need to listen to everyone's voice and understand where we really are in order to heal and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. And now if I could ask Ms. Robinson to ask our second question.
Thank you. Okay, could you please share with us some innovative ways you plan to recruit and retain high-quality educators, especially in a time where fewer young people are going into teaching? And how will you support veteran staff facing burnout due to increasing demands and limited resources?
I'm going to actually start with the second part of this question. My wife was a school adjustment counselor for 8 years. She was burned out. So I've lived it on the front lines. She actually worked in a Bridging Resilient Youth in Transition, BRIGHT program. I know that program's at Beverly High School. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of it as it's named there. But she was partnered up with a teacher who was frequently unavailable. So she took on not only the social emotional health and welfare, but she picked up the academic side as well. And that additional burden without additional supports over a 2-year period in the high school that she worked at really caused her to question and then step away from the profession in schools. We need to make sure that we are supporting our educators with high quality professional development that gives them real strategies on how to address and work with students' increasing social emotional needs. We need to provide them the time and the space to co-plan with their fellow educators. We need to find ways that our educators can be shielded. One of my core values is to protect the sanctity of the classroom and to essentially shield our educators from the noise that's going on outside. Will there be state and federal mandates that we have to follow through on? Absolutely. But that instruction in the classroom, that classroom teacher's connection, that classroom instructional aid, I try to stay away from the word paraprofessional, but that classroom instructional aid and those supports of social workers and unified arts teachers, those connections with their students and their ability to help them move forward is fundamentally critical. And if we are burning out our teachers, our human capital is our most valuable resource. It is our most important resource. And we need to make sure that we are guarding and protecting them from burnout. And I've lived it, and my wife is probably watching right now. But the reality is, all right, as a principal and a district leader, I've tried to provide time and space for teachers to be able to grow themselves professionally and become better educators. And I would say one way I did that in the past was when one of my teachers was going through the process to become a coach for Wit and Wisdom's math partner, Eureka Math. I provided space and time, found substitutes to cover her classes as she was traveling around the country to go through that. And she went from one of 100 down to one of 2 or 3. And that only helped our district and our school further. Innovative ways you plan to recruit and retain high quality staff. It's interesting. I was able to meet Dr. Andre on a TNTP. DESE was doing recruitment seminars for educators to recruit and retain diverse educators. And it's interesting because we were talking a lot of theory and up high level. And he remembered me when I said, raised my hand nicely on the Zoom, and I said, I'm sorry, but can we talk about practical nuts and bolts ways we're going to keep teachers here? Because teachers are burning out. Teachers are struggling. And I think that some of the innovative ways is I think we need to start with our young people. We need to see about how our young people through internships or other members of our high school can actually be maybe part of an early childhood program, maybe be in our first, second, and third grade classrooms helping out with early literacy. Perhaps I believe firmly in early literacy, despite being a secondary principal primarily. Our early literacy initiatives are so critical. Perhaps they could be going out and meeting families who are busy right now and providing resources there and spark that love of teaching. I think also making sure that we're reaching out to local universities, making sure that we are bringing in the best and the brightest. And I know that some like Merrimack's program costs money, but you get what you invest in. And if we invest in high quality, well-trained educators, that investment is going to yield benefits for years to come. Perhaps it's also training and getting teachers certified in Orton Gillingham or Wilson Reading or whatever it may be to really help support our early literacy initiatives. But people aren't doing it themselves. And when they do it themselves, they're taking on an additional burden. When the district is there to support them as a true partner, we can be successful in maintaining and recruiting because teachers talk. And when they hear that they're supported by the Beverly Public Schools, we won't have a recruitment problem because people will self-recruit to us.
Thank you again for that response. Mayor Cahill, would you mind reading the third question?
Sure. How would you address bullying, discrimination, and harassment at the district level in terms of protocol and expectations for those at the building level and for central office in terms of responses?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that question. I do appreciate it. As someone who is subject to significant amounts of bullying in my past, I have seen my opportunity as a school leader to not only protect and guard against bullying for students, but to also make sure that the students who are the aggressors receive services and receive interventions so that they can move forward from the type of behavior that marginalizes and demeans their targets. I think that is fundamentally critical as a part of this. In Medford, about 5 years ago, we reviewed for the first time. We were well behind on policy. Myself and the Director of Special Education and Pupil Personnel Services, Ms. Bowen, and I worked collaboratively to review the anti-bullying plan as required by the state and discovered it had not been reviewed, which is mandated every 2 years, but had not been reviewed, I believe, remembering correctly, since its adoption in 2012 and the update to who could be a bully in 2014. So we had a lot of work to do, and the removal and addition of significant amounts of language. Policy, I'm not going to lie, is a really fun thing for me, and I actually loved watching the meetings on F&F when you talk about policy. If you watch any of the Medford School Committee meetings, last night I offered policy recommendations on our calendar. We are different than Beverly in that we try to recognize as many religious holidays as possible to respect and honor. However, it causes a significant challenge with our calendar in that this year we had to reduce the number of holidays because we did not get the 5 necessary additional snow days at the end. Back to the question at hand, though. So one of our problems was the forms with the state forms. So I went through and rewrote those forms in Google Form templates. Made sure that we have a tracking system for as bullying reports are entered, that we're tracking them and we're following up. We also make sure that our staff, and this comes from being a principal as well, that our staff I think frequently the idea is to bring students together and have a conversation. Well, if you're the person who has just been bullied, targeted, aggressed on, that could be a horrifying approach to have to sit with your aggressor. So what we do is we try to approach students individually. We try to understand where they are. We've worked with Pathways to Restorative Communities as a restorative justice approach to understand how we're going to build in the restorative justice, but that needs to come with time. We have, as both a principal and assistant superintendent, there have been situations we significantly limit suspensions. Suspending students is not an effective strategy. However, there are times when the separation is needed. If you look at my past experience at Narragansett and Webster and in Medford, suspensions decrease significantly when I take over leadership roles because it is not an effective strategy. That being said, as I mentioned previously, there are some times where you have to separate in order to reset. But a comprehensive entry plan needs to be in place. Bullying intervention plans need to have frequent check-ins with either school leadership, principal, assistant principal, dean of students, or counselor. We need to make sure that the aggressed student, the target, is also being checked in frequently, that safety plans are put in place, that communication happens to both families and caregivers so that they understand that the school is there for them. If any type of a physical assault happens, it's protocol that students must be checked out by a school nurse to make sure that we are addressing the physical health as well. We also need to make sure that we're having programs, be it responsive classroom at the elementary level, restorative justice at secondary. We also in Medford applied for and received a hate crimes grant 3 years ago to really do a significant amount of this work. And while not specifically addressing bullying, it was something that we have also used because language, aggression, and those types of things are something that have no place in our schools. And we as leaders have to actively combat it and work with staff, caregivers as a team to address it, and then also bring students on board. I will say, I think one of my best experiences in helping to combat bullying and build a culture was when I was the assistant principal and then principal of Narragansett Middle School and Regional High School, and created a 4-day, 8 a.m. to noon freshman orientation program where we would bring in 50 or 60 student leaders. They didn't have to be National Honor Society. They didn't have to be the elite of the elite. I wanted kids who were invested in making our school better. Kids that would then go throughout the year, and when they saw a problem, they would have no fear, or maybe a little fear, but in addressing it and saying, we don't do that here. We shouldn't do it anywhere. We don't do it here. By the way, it's been a long day, so if you feel like I didn't answer the question, please always follow up and push back. And my little Mackenzie definitely kept me up last night.
Yeah, it's an endurance test for sure. Ms. Coelho, would you mind asking the candidate question number 4 when you're ready?
How would you approach the district's desire to improve and maintain high academic achievement? What are some of the core competencies that our students need to master? A, before they get to high school, and B, before they graduate?
Ms. Robinson, thank you very much for that question. Coelho, my goodness, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. I apologize. So when I went to St. Anselm College, there was no collegiate football program, and I was really all set and ready to move on. And this isn't a jocular story, except to say that over several years, I worked really hard to help return that program to a varsity program, and did it in a school that's a Benedictine tradition, and their time frame is usually geological and not in doing things quickly. We were able to get the program completed by the time I graduated and restarted, and then I actually went back to school for my education certification in my 5th year after graduating. Why am I telling you that story? One of the most influential people outside of my family was a coach by the name of Drew McGinnis, and he was only with us for 1 year because he went back to Villanova to coach there. Every single day, He challenged us to raise the bar, to get better every single day, not just as athletes, not just as football players, but as human beings. He challenged us every day to raise the bar. And so that's the approach that I'll take, that every day we have to get better. Will there be setbacks? Yes. Failure is a part of learning. In the first round, one of the questions was, tell us about a time you failed. And I said, it's going to be hard to choose from all the failures that I've had. Failure is a part. I think one of the approaches that I will take is going back to understanding what the district's wants and needs are from the community. There's no reason students should have to go to private schools or charter schools or anywhere else. The resources are here or can be here with what Beverly has to offer. As I mentioned, I went to high school in Danvers, all right? Or maybe I didn't, to a private school over there. There's no reason people have to pay $30,000 or $35,000 to go and get a great education when there's a great education here. I think what we have to do is we need to establish what we mean by high academic achievement. We have to establish what good instruction looks like that's going to help lead to high academic achievement. We need to make sure that our tier 1 instruction is second to none, because interventions are first costly financially and they cost students time away from the bulk of their peers. Interventions will be necessary, but I want to focus on good, high-quality Tier 1 instruction that provides our students with the absolute best when they leave each day from school. So my approach to this is really to get teachers, school leaders around the table to define what good instruction looks like, to define what high academic achievement actually is, to make sure that if we have a robust advanced placement program, how are we making sure that students of low socioeconomic status, students who are Black and brown, students who may not be traditional AP core students are going through that? I ask a question of most schools that I work in. If 80% or so, just to throw a number out there, of our students are going to a 2 or a 4-year college, are 80% of our students completing an advanced placement course while they're in high school, and it's free and it offers them an opportunity for hopefully getting some college credit and thereby reducing their debt load? All right, we should have every student taking in the 10th and 11th grade at district expense the PSAT. That way we can establish the use of AP Potential, a tool that the College Board provides. When you set those numbers of a standard deviation lower than what it comes set at, you are able to capture a tremendous amount of students that you can sit down and have conversations with, that you can help drive them into these high-level courses that will better prepare them for college. It is a critical thing that we need to do to help raise the bar and to bring in students on 504s and IEPs as part of those cohorts, to bring in non-traditional students who may not even know about them because that's not in their family's vocabulary. We need to help educate our families also about what high academic standards are, and I would propose that that's done through a parent university or a caregiver university for us to be really involved. Some of the core competencies that students need to master before they get to high school. I'm a huge believer, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this in Medford right now, in providing our students with executive functioning coaching. I've reached out to several coaches, and I'm trying to figure out a way to put that in our schedules or to work with principals to make that happen. I think it might take another 18 months or so to get it off the ground, but I really believe that our students right now have so much thrown at them through their own personal devices, through technology in the classroom, through parents who are probably working a lot to make ends meet. We need to make sure that we're providing them with strong executive functioning skills so that they can complete tasks, they can do well on those, and move forward. We also need to make sure that students have good math facts, good reading, and make sure that as they come through 3rd grade, they're reading on grade level. That's a fundamental skill. We also need to make sure that as our middle schoolers rise to high school, that they are engaging in critical thinking, that they're able to discern what they're reading and tell fact from fiction. In this world where fake news and disinformation is published regularly as fact, we need to make sure that they are able to discern that. We also need to make sure that they are good digital citizens. And as they receive phishing emails, as they receive things that look so much more authentic than they did just 6 months ago, that they are not handing over their personal information and then being victimized for years to come. All right, so good digital citizenship as well. Before they graduate, our students need to understand their role in our world as being supporters of their fellow man. I'm a huge believer in firm focus on social justice. Samuel Adams, the author of our state constitution, put in some words that I think often are forgot about. We have a duty to cherish. That's what he said about education. We have an obligation, and I say that in the highest sense of the word obligation, a duty to make sure that before they graduate, they understand the debt load that they're getting into. They understand ways that they can reduce that debt load so that they aren't fully burdened by it. It costs $300,000 a year to live comfortably in Massachusetts. How many of our students and families are going to be able to achieve that when they're burdened with college debt? We need to make sure that our students are able to master as they leave high school, the ability to discern information, to understand their place and how they can improve their condition.
Thank you again. Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza, would you mind asking the 5th question?
Thank you. After an historic teacher strike in Beverly, how will you go about not only building trust between educators and district leadership, but also addressing non-monetary concerns that may have led to the strike and building morale in our schools? What concrete steps will you take to ensure that teachers are not only heard, but actively involved in decision-making as well?
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. I appreciate that question. And I would say it's probably one of the most important of a lot of really important questions tonight. So healing takes time. And your body may heal on its own from some wounds, but the reality is that wounds like this strike require careful cultivation, require us as leaders to send an olive branch across the aisle and work to come together. So building trust isn't something that I can say for people just to believe me. They could reach out and talk to previous educators that I've worked with families that I've worked with many other people that I've worked with over my last 20 plus years in education, that I do what I say and I say what I do. All right. The Beverly educators will learn that through time, and I hope it's learned quickly, because I believe that our honesty and our duty, back to that word duty here, is healing this has to be done as quickly as possible. And I don't want that to sound rushed, but right now we're only about 14 months away from the next contract cycle. In Medford, our last contract failed at the TA level, all right, 3 years ago. There was a lot of acrimony and there was a lot of hurt feelings. And I would say that we may have been close to a similar outcome that you had in Beverly. Over the last 2.5 years, Dr. Maurice Adouard-Vincent, our previous superintendent, myself, our interim superintendent, Dr. Suzanne Galusi, and other members of the senior leadership team worked extraordinarily hard to rebuild trust and relationships. We worked very closely with our school committee to understand the needs of the district. One of the things I would propose as part of this is I think that Beverly needs a comprehensive needs assessment to fully understand what the type of district we need to be is, so that voters and other people can understand the true costs of fully staffing a district. And I just want to make sure I read back. When we went into negotiations this time, we were well prepared. We provided rationales connected to student work and student outcomes as to why we were proposing changes in the contract. We were crystal clear and transparent with our bargaining partners. I definitely think that in Beverly, we need to establish, if one has not already been established, a joint management labor committee, so JLMC, all right? We need to make sure that that meets frequently so that issues don't move to grievances, all right, that only further help to fracture, but that we're having conversations, that we're addressing issues before they become a grievance, that we're having an open and honest dialogue. I also think that being present in schools, frequently visiting classrooms by myself and other district leaders is critical for people to see us and to not see us as the other side or the enemy, but to see us as true partners in helping to move Beverly's education forward. So being present, being transparent. One of my other core values is being transparent and communicating with stakeholders to the point of almost criminality, all right? That we should be an open book and we should be providing as much information as possible. I think the non-monetary concerns that I've heard today and building morale in our schools is educators shared with me that they still don't feel heard. They feel like people may be listening. I can't say whether that's true or not, but that's what people were saying to me. So we need to find a way to work together to truly not only listen, but then establish plans that have through lines where you can see this was what was said, it was investigated, it was looked into, it was revealed, and then we come up with solutions that can be easily seen by staff, by bargaining partner leaderships, by you as members of the governing body. We have that obligation to really heal this. The concrete steps that I will take is that JLMC, to make sure that teachers are a part of decision-making, to make sure that at each school level, we're able to really invest in their ability to not feel that if they bring something up, they're going to face reprisals, to make sure that they can have open and honest dialogue done respectfully, but that as issues come up, we're able to address them so they don't fester, so they don't become a problem. Other concrete steps, though, are specific that when we do have a grievance, make sure that we're working with the leadership to resolve it and move forward. Finally, I would say frequent conversations over my course of educational leadership with our union presidents, no matter what I work with 10 bargaining associations in Medford, several of which are represented by the Teamsters. Our administrators recently moved to the Teamsters, so that's been a unique challenge at times and has also opened up some really great doors for dialogue. So it's both welcome and also opens up other situations. But I think by having open, honest conversations with the stewards and the presidents allows us the opportunity to address issues before they become issues.
Thank you.
Dr. Silva, would you bring forward question number 6?
Thank you. Like most districts right now, Beverly is facing budgetary challenges. Can you talk about how you've handled budgeting in tough financial times? Have you used a needs-based or zero-based approach? For example, do you work with your team to figure out what staffing or programs are essential? And how do you make sure those decisions are aligned with district goals and made transparently?
Thank you, Dr. Silver. I think that this is a critical question. I also think that this really opens the door for me to talk about the advocacy that I've done on the state level. I've been a member of the board of directors I'm not right now, but have been previously a member of the board of directors for the Massachusetts School Administrators Association. I have had previous conversations with the commissioners of education in Massachusetts to really say that, you tell us to tighten our belts, but, we've tightened our belts, we've cut the fat, we've cut the muscle, and now we're amputating limbs. The real estate Chapter 70 formula, it was so disheartening last night when I read the news that there would be no Chapter 70 reform. That kind of crushed my soul. I think that Chapter 70 reform, especially for minimum supported districts like Beverly, is really critical because the needs are outweighing the resources, and we need to fix this. We've known this for the past 32 years since ed reform went into place. We've known this, but we choose not to act. We implemented the millionaire's tax, but then the governor says no more money will go to education. We need to fully fund education. We need to stand up and we need to make sure that we are advocating tirelessly. I go to MASBO roundtables for the North Shore. I attend MASS meetings. I meet with legislators connected with Medford. I work with the mayor of Medford and members of our vice chair of our school committee to make sure that they understand our financial needs. Running buildings, running in Medford 1.2 million square feet of space over 7 buildings costs upkeep, and unfortunately that sometimes impacts on our academic lines. So as a leader, from when I started in 2008, I would say that we have faced cuts every single year, save 2. All right, we have faced devastating cuts, especially when I was working in rural north central Massachusetts, of draconian cuts. All right, facing massive cuts to services. And the way I approach it is, I talked earlier about a needs assessment. So my approach is really about, what does our school need to be successful? And not just what does our school need to be successful, what does our staff and our students need to be successful? Because when we eliminate programs, when we eliminate counselors, when we eliminate instructional aides, Dr. Silver, we are reducing the opportunity for students to be successful. We are reducing their connection to someone who can provide social emotional supports in times of crisis. We are reducing their opportunity to be successful in the future, and we are potentially restricting their specific opportunity to learn. So I really take a needs-based approach. I have done zero-based approach in the past. Needs-based can be very time-consuming because it requires really justifying and understanding what you're doing all the time. But I think a district has to do a needs-based approach at least every several years to understand where we are and potentially reset and make sure whatever programs that we're running are well supported and well funded. One of the things that I worked on in both being a principal and assistant principal is to bring department heads around the table to ask them for their input into the budget, to make sure that their wants and needs were clearly identified as wants and needs, to make sure that we were then presenting those budgetary items to the school committee so they had a full picture. I understand there are fiscal constraints from the municipal side, that there's only so much that Proposition 2.5 allows us to increase the levy, but I look forward to working with the mayor and his team to look at linkage or new growth or other opportunities to make sure that our schools are fully funded. And having watched 18 months of your meetings, I am impressed at the work that you've done to try to make sure that that obligation to the to the Beverly students is being fulfilled. I also think that these conversations at both the subcommittee and the committee level need to be transparently published. I think what Beverly has done by making sure it's on the website is critical, but we can't expect parents to visit the website. All right, we need to make sure it's being pushed out on social media. We need to make sure that we're doing weekly communications. I was a huge fan of newsletters to families. We use SMORE and Final Sight to be able to deliver and then understand the metrics for our messages, but that we are delivering these out to families. And similar to what I mentioned previously, bringing these presentations to families in their school communities or in other places in Beverly where we can address and let people know how critical these budgets are. I do think also that school and district leadership has a responsibility to really continue to push in a fiscally responsible way, but to push to continue to make sure we have the right programs, we have fully funded programs, and that team approach is shown to the community and the electorate so that when it comes time for a potential levy increase, that the community fully understands what we're asking. And I think that goes back to many communities who aren't successfully passing those right now. Times are tough. I understand that. In Medford, we were able to do it because we clearly articulated what the dollars were for. We clearly proved to people what we were going to do, and then we did it, and we delivered 15 minutes additional to the day and 2 additional professional development days with other significant reforms that we came to with our bargaining partners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For question number 7, I'd like to ask, what is your experience with curriculum development? And as superintendent, how will you ensure the highest quality instruction in all of our classrooms consistently across our district?
Thank you, President Abel. I'm going to harken back to an answer that I think I gave in my first interview with the subcommittee. So when I first arrived in Medford, what I heard was your evaluation as an educator, your supervision as an educator depended largely on who your evaluator was. And so we brought in a trainer from Rebus Associates, who I've worked with previously, and had some of the best professional development I've ever had on supervision and evaluation, to do a one-day primer. The plan was that the following year we would launch into a comprehensive program of, I think it's 67 hours of professional development for our school and district leaders, that we would launch into that the next year. Well, we all know what happened that March, and COVID really delayed us about 2 years to bring that professional development in. We worked with our 45 or so evaluators to make sure that they were all trained in a comprehensive supervision and evaluation model. We also worked to make sure that we were watching videos and calibrating and understanding what good instruction looked like, and how to provide good, high quality, targeted feedback with resources for teachers to improve if there was an issue. I also think in this, as superintendent and as being part of a leadership team, it's critical to visit classrooms frequently in a non-evaluative manner, to provide feedback in learning walks that teachers are a part of. Now, I know substitutes are always a concern, so we'd need to work around that issue. But we want to make sure that teachers can go around and see their peers. And again, in a non-evaluative way. And also, as superintendent and other members of the leadership team, we should be frequently visiting classrooms and maybe providing just notes of, I really appreciated what I saw here today, and specifically call out what they saw. Like, those positive moments of support go a long way with teachers who are struggling and toiling through a long day working with our populations of students. I think also we need to define what high quality instruction looks like. I talked about that earlier, but that is going to be a shared exercise to make sure that we are able to clearly articulate not just what a portrait of a graduate is, but what a portrait of high quality instruction looks like. And that would be work that I would see us doing together with members of the teaching, instructional aid, and leadership teams. My experience with curriculum development is actually quite extensive. Being a principal of a significantly underfunded school district meant that that type of work, generally speaking, fell to me. There might be one curriculum specialist in the district, but as principal, it was up to me to really investigate, look at curriculum, work with my assistant principal, bring some teachers in around, also to empower teachers. I'll never forget when I first became principal, one of my fifth grade science teacher came to me and she said, Peter, we've been teaching in the same book for over 20 years, all right? And I empowered her to reach out to reps. I empowered her to research what was available. I empowered her to go and visit other schools to be able to see what they were doing in our area. And then it took a little bit longer than I hoped for. It was about a 2 or 3 year period to finally secure the funding. But then I was able to negotiate hard with Pearson, now Savis, in a way that over a 7-year period, we had a contract that they would update the curriculum if they ever made changes. That required a really uncomfortable conversation with the sales rep when they made changes 2 years in, and I had that smoking gun email of, no, we negotiated this. You need to send us the materials. And they started sending them to us annually because the updates were happening annually. It wasn't what they had intended, and it definitely cost them significantly more than they anticipated. When we switched from the math curriculum, I forget what it was, but it wasn't really standards-based. And when the Common Core came out, their update was literally to just put little Common Core bubbles throughout the book that didn't correlate to the actual information in the book. We went with Engage New York because it was free. And we really worked with our teachers. The rollout from the superintendent was abrupt, to say the least. We had proposed it for the following academic year in February, and she said, I want it to roll out on the Monday after February vacation, and it was the Thursday before February vacation. Not how you roll out curriculum. But what we did was we worked to bring in high-quality professional development. We worked to scaffold teachers' work, and we worked through the next budget cycle to go from 1 block of math a day to really getting creative with financing and budgeting to eliminate some positions that we had and hire additional math teachers so every student received 90 minutes of math instruction each day. The elementary teachers that we were working with sending their students to us were really great teachers and really great connecting with our students. One of the areas that they struggled, though, because the district hadn't provided professional development, was in the area of math. So one year, the student cohort that came to us wasn't 19th percentile, it was 19th from the bottom in the state. And so increasing to double instructional blocks of math required professional development for our staff, required deploying the Engaged New York curriculum, and required us having math nights for families, making sure that we were engaging caregivers and how they could support their youth. The other thing that I would say didn't exactly go well was when we double blocked humanities and we tried to go with a homegrown approach to save money. If I had to make that decision over again, I think my teachers did an amazing job and we saw gains. But I would say that I would much rather have alleviated that stress and burden on teachers creating materials, on teachers developing, and would have loved to have found a way to finance or fund a curriculum offering. I think it's really great what I heard in Beverly about the wit and wisdom versus reading reimagined. I think that was a conversation about a year or so ago that was proposed. And I think that was a really good way to engage staff and to have those conversations. So I would consider that a struggle or a failure in my past with the humanities piece. We still saw growth, but it probably was not as good as we did. I will say that the work that we did as a team there took us from almost a level 3 school under the old rating system to being one of only 2 level 1 middle schools in all of Worcester County. And that wasn't anything because I did alone. It was because of the team and the approach we took. And we definitely tripped and fell. We failed. We made mistakes. But we picked each other up and we built success for the future. I just want to make sure that I answered that. I think I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Visnick, we're coming back to you for a second question, number 8.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Abel. Unfortunately, there's a national movement challenging diversity, equity, and inclusion in public schools, especially as it relates to race, gender, and LGBTQ plus identities. Federal funding, inclusive curriculum, and educators' careers are being challenged. As a potential superintendent, can you share an example of when you have taken, or you would be willing to take, a professional risk to uphold the human and civil rights of our students and staff?
Thank you for that question. I'll say I was definitely anticipating a question around this. I speak a lot of times about the imperative of our work. I speak about our obligation. I've talked tonight about our duty to cherish. I, throughout my career, have had the unfortunate situation of having 6 students pass away. Car accident, physical illness, suicide, whatever it may be. There's no worse situation as a school leader than that. Right now, what we are doing as a federal government and as a nation in targeting some of the most vulnerable of us, of our human collective, is more than disheartening, it's disgraceful. We have to be willing to stand in harm's way to protect our students. I'm going to share with you 3 specific examples of when I've done this. First, Narragansett Regional School District has the mascot of the Warriors. It was a Plains Indian, not even a New England Indian. The local Native community had a significant issue with this and had brought it forward to the district over several years. In my second or third year of being the assistant principal of the high school, Dr. Rosalie Weiss, and I was someone who really wanted to build school pride. And prior to understanding, I didn't see any issue with the Warrior Head. I was wrong. I was wrong. And after doing research, after speaking with people, and being asked by my superintendent, who I had a tremendous amount of respect for, to de-emphasize the Warrior Head, I worked to create a new logo that one of my phys ed and teachers and field hockey coaches inspired, with an N with a Florida State type arrow through it. I always saw it as a step down, and we slowly de-emphasized that Warrior Head and further emphasized the N. Students saw that N over the next 6 or 7 years as the true logo of their district. We were still known as the Warriors, and the eventual piece was to remove the arrow from it, but we never got to that point. There was a change in district leadership towards the end of my tenure, and the decision was unilaterally made that we're going right back to the Warrior Head. It was so disheartening because we had quietly done what other districts had really lost capital on, and we had quietly made a shift. What's really awesome and really phenomenal is, as I left to go to Webster and then to Medford, 2 of my amazing middle school students who then moved on to the high school, Nadia Surin and Maddie Ambrogi, and I call them out by name because they deserve to be called out by name. They went to the school committee, all right? After several years of the Warrior Head being back in place, they went to the school committee. They advocated. It was student voice that led to the permanent change and removing the Warrior Head. And I would like to think that I had some small part in that, because I really worked to make sure that we were doing that. The next piece is, again, at both school and district levels, Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education published vignettes and guidance on gender non-conforming students in 2012. All right. It's really comprehensive, 13 or 14-page document that provides great guidance to schools and leaders on how to support gender nonconforming and transgender students. I started doing professional development with that, I would say in 2014 or 2015. I had actually wanted it to be my dissertation research, but there wasn't enough a body of research on that. I was challenged by my staff as to, why are you doing this? Why we don't have, quote unquote, those kids here. Well, the truth is, we did have a student who was contemplating transitioning, and my staff made me aware of it. My clinical social worker made me aware of it. And I said, please reach out to the mother, all right, and let her know that we're here when she wants to talk to us over this summer. And I waited all summer. She didn't call me. And about 2 days before school started, I reached out and called her. And over about a half an hour conversation, the conversation ended and she goes, wait, you're not making this difficult? You're not making this hard? And I said, no, my job is to make this easier for you. My job, I can't imagine what you're going through, all right, with this transition as you support your child. But what I can do as a leader is make sure that I am supporting you, supporting your child, and making sure they are protected. So the final piece that I would talk to you about is a time that another superintendent saw that it was important to write me up for allowing students to start a gay-straight alliance at my middle school. And it was nice when the next superintendent removed it from my file and was horrified that I still have a copy of it in my office. Happy to scan and send it if you want to see it, but it was literally a stun to my professional career that I had built and cultivated and really worked. But when that happened, I was dumbfounded and flabbergasted. I have put myself in harm's way. I have really stepped outside of my comfort zone because our LGBTQ plus, our students of color, they need to be protected. We have to own the promise that we've made to them throughout the past 50 years of the civil rights movement that apparently many people want to forget has happened and to push aside. We have a duty to make sure that we are protecting those students and make sure that their voices are heard. And I understand that may not be popular for some people, but as a leader, I have to stand sometimes with the unpopular decisions because the good of the one or the good of the few outweighs what the majority might think. We have a duty to protect and uphold their humanity and their civil rights. I really appreciate this question because I think it is fundamentally critical that our students and staff see that. So thank you.
Ms. Robinson, if you wouldn't mind with question 9.
Sure. If you became our superintendent, one of your early decisions will be hiring an assistant superintendent. How will you approach your search, and what will you look for in an assistant superintendent?
So in viewing the meetings, I guess I heard a reorganization of existing central office, but I want to address like how I believe searches should be held in general. Searches for these high-level positions, principal positions, assistant principal positions, athletic director, whatever it may be, need to be well-structured. They need to have, I think, a comprehensive review of the job description, which school committee approves, but a comprehensive review of the job description prior to posting. We need to make sure that we are building committees of people who can be present and be a part. If they can't commit to the full committee, maybe there's some work they could help us with, but make sure that they're able to attend every meeting where we're interviewing candidates, where we're developing questions. I do really believe that this is something that these positions should involve members of the community, be it caregivers, students. I really appreciated this search, including students at the outset. That was a really remarkable and refreshing piece for me. So I think students do need to be involved. I also believe that the assistant superintendent needs to be someone who's going to work well with me as a leader, and that our leadership styles complement each other, but that person also feels like they can push back and say, I'm sorry, I disagree with your thinking on this, to speak specifically about the assistant superintendent. But I think members of the senior leadership team, I think members of the community need to be involved in these decisions. We need to have teacher representatives, students, and others, and then hopefully a member of the school committee as well, so that people's elected voices as part of the governance team can also be involved in this process. Yep.
Mayor Cahill, would you mind?
Do you think technology has really changed education beyond the bells and whistles that we all see? How do you see our district assessing our technological needs, and how would you go about looking at a technology plan for our future? Who would you involve in that discussion?
Thank you, Mayor Cahill. This is actually something I'm doing in Medford presently. We're doing a comprehensive assessment of our network, and over the next 2 years, a full rebuild from the ground up, including network switches, wireless access points. And so really looking at the infrastructure backbone of what we're doing, because right now, the network really is not meeting the needs and demands of our students. So I do think technology has changed education beyond the bells and whistles. But one thing I'm going to say is I think that one thing that has significantly changed it is students' personal devices. I'm a firm believer in supporting the Wait Until 8th campaign. Any good that has come out of students having these personal devices is far outweighed by the damage and devastation that I've seen them ring on students' social media, the negative effects. The social emotional crisis is not just because of cell phones, but it's a significant part of the problem. We regulate drugs and alcohol, but we don't regulate one of the most addictive things that has ever come into our society. So while not specific to your question on educational technology, I do believe that those personal devices have caused our students a lot of harm. And we as a district need to really advocate for parents holding off as long as possible. The Wait Until 8th campaign, I think, is a great way to do that. We do need to educate our students with the digital literacy standards. We need to make sure that those are put into the curriculum. I support library media specialists at all levels. I think that they are incredibly important, not only in early literacy, not only in helping to select books and make sure that the right books get into students' hands, but they're also well skilled in making sure that our students are able to understand technology, understand media, and those types of things. I do think that there's a significant shift in our educational landscape. It's almost a death by 1,000 cuts with all of the subscription fees we now have to pay. And I think that there are a lot of curriculum resources out there that are not high quality. There are two that I have seen, in particular, ST Math and Lexia Core 5, that have specific results for kids in improving their academic outcomes. Lexia Core 5 really helps in language acquisition and reading, and ST Math, GG, really helps our students' math skills. So those are a couple of things there. There are a lot of bells and whistles associated with it, but I do believe that technology has also enhanced. Technology has also enhanced not just in what students are doing, but it's enhanced their abilities to connect with students across the world, to understand resources that we may not be able to otherwise see, to interact with the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel when they're doing an art lesson on Michelangelo, or to really dive deep as they were doing today in the Wit and Wisdom class on Apollo 11. There are so many things that are now available to our students. Our world language classes can be able to reach out and have conversations with students in French from France, or and be able to have those opportunities. So I think the people that need to be involved in the discussion are our principals, assistant principals, our curriculum directors. I'm sure Beverly, like Medford, has a wealth of resources in caregivers who work in this field. And we should put a call out to them to really help us understand our technology needs and where we need to go. We have significant expenses when it comes to this. The work in Medford is north of $1 million. We use E-rate funding to really offset that. That's a significant amount of my work right now, is navigating the E-rate world, especially as we come up to the end of our 5-year cycle, and making sure that we're bringing high qualified vendors to build a high quality network. Also, at the start of the pandemic, our teachers in Medford basically had Chromebooks to work with. I can't expect a person to lead high quality instruction when they have a low quality device. So we moved forward with MacBooks for all of our teachers, and we have committed to funding that for them on a 5-year renewal cycle. Those are significant costs, but we need to make sure that we're providing our teachers with the tools they need to be successful. And then finally, a lot of districts have gone away from a technology plan. I'm someone who advocates that technology plans should be kept up, maintained. We should understand the life cycles of our devices that students have. We should understand the life cycles of wireless access points. They're only about 10 years, shockingly. Also, there are significant licensing fees annually with wireless access points. So again, another subscription, another license that cuts into those available resources for staff and curriculum development and deployment. So just to close out, who would I would involve? It would be principals, hopefully community members who have a part of it, the district's IT team, and how does technology enhance curriculum deployment but not replace it?
Thank you for that response. Ms. Coelho, would you mind taking us to question 11?
Yes. Beverly has an operational sustainability committee to address all things green across our district. This work spans multiple departments and involves both our schools and the wider community. Can you share your experience with a similar initiative? Also, what do you see as your role in continuing the OSC in Beverly?
Thank you, Ms. Coelho, for that question. It's really right in my wheelhouse right now, and I'm really excited to talk about this. Besides from personally purchasing an EV, a Ford F-150 Lightning, I highly recommend them myself in October. The work that I'm doing in Medford is directly around this. Three of our schools, 2 buildings, the McGlynn Elementary and Middle School at the McGlynn Complex, and the Andrews Middle School had substantially failed or failing HVAC systems. They were installed in 2021, and as most municipalities, deferred or unfunded maintenance just didn't happen. And our school's maintenance team has done the absolute best they can. They're a tremendous team. But the reality is that these systems are aging. The Freon and gas that they use, the Freon is R22. I've talked about this a lot at Medford school committees and city council meetings. R22, and that's now banned for production and import, and you can only get it from existing stocks or from reclaiming from existing equipment. When it vents into the atmosphere, it can cause significant damage. That's why the EPA has banned it. And the cost to acquire it to repair systems is exorbitant, about 20 times what it would have cost pre-ban. Right now, we were just approved last Tuesday night for final bond approval of a $31 million HVAC project to replace the systems in those schools. It does not include terminal units, but it is a high energy efficiency that will receive about $2.4 million in reimbursements and credits from National Grid once the project is complete. I work with our city's sustainability office and our city's climate planner in weekly meetings. We're currently also working with the Mass CEC, Clean Energy Commission, I believe, but Mass CEC to electrify our buses. We're hoping to roll out 4 in the next year or so, and I would really be excited where Beverly owns its own buses. There's a significant upfront cost, but there is a diesel Emissions Reduction Act grant on the state side, DERA, that allows you to receive resources to switch to electric buses when you remove diesel buses from the work. I've also worked with partners to replace almost all the lights across the district with daylight harvesting, energy efficient lights. That's work that I've taken on, while much of the work I do as a team. A lot of this work has been leading these initiatives and really seeing opportunities to partner with our city leaders and civic leaders to make sure that we're doing this, not just for the cost savings that we're seeing, but to also make sure that we are moving forward. The Andrews Middle School will receive a full solar array, and we're still trying to figure out the battery piece of that. And right now, it's an alternate solar array for the McGlynn complex. Sorry, I'm speaking in names of schools you don't know, but we will hopefully have the $1.2 million in cost savings. I do significant work with your former owner's project manager. There are OPM on it, JLL, and a gentleman by the name of Tom Ellis. In weekly meetings with them, I'm also working with B2Q, who's Beverly has worked with previously to design the systems. And between the HVAC systems, the buses, and the lights, those are just 3 of the projects that I'm working on. I've also worked with our food service director. I was able to hire a food service director after we had some significant challenges cited by DESE in an extraordinarily long findings report 2 years ago, just after I took over the food service program. Our previous operations and finance person left on a Friday, and the auditor showed up on a Monday. That was quite the experience for me, and threw me into fire to really learn. What I'm trying to tell you is I don't know just curriculum. I don't know just student life. I've cultivated my career to be able to understand comprehensive district systems. We've also worked in Medford. We have a substantial food service budget because over the previous X number of years, no money was spent to update the kitchens. So we have moved towards significant electrification of our kitchens. However, I am a little surprised at how challenging that is because to get I think it's 420 or 470 current into the kitchens requires a significant amount of work. So myself and my food service director were a little bit stunned, and we had to slow our roll a little bit. We went full steam ahead with the Andrews Middle School, and the challenges in that made us go and really pace out over several years how we're going to do this. Also, I recently led a project with the team on a hot water heater replacement, and to go fully electric, the cost almost doubled. From $230,000 to almost $500,000. And it wasn't like we were not going to get extended life out of this project. It was still going to be a 10 to 15 year lifespan. So we went with a 96% efficient condensing hot water heater. This type of work is really critical to me, and I see myself as the leader of Beverly Public Schools as really continuing and supporting this work and hearing ways that we can continually be better. We have one environment, and we've done enough damage to it. So I think it is, again, it's our responsibility to lead for our students in how we want to make change for the better.
Thank you. Dr. Canan Mackenzie DeFranza, question number 12, if you would mind.
Thank you. As you lead the district, how would you see student performance results to use student performance results to prioritize use of resources, including money, technology, facilities, and human capital? And what are your views about using student achievement data to evaluate educators?
Thank you again for this question. So I think that student performance results can be definitely utilized to help inform where we should be spending money, how we should do technology enhancements. But it needs to be more than just the once a year MCAS results. We need to have a comprehensive system in place that really examines student performance in interim measures. Right now in Medford, we use MAP growth assessment. We deploy that test 3 times a year across grades 2 through 10 to really understand where our students are and to help them grow and make decisions about what are some of the resources that we might need for that. I also think that when you're talking about human capital, it might be best to look at it as what professional development is the data telling us we should deploy to be able to help support our teachers to close gaps that there might be. The achievement gap and the opportunity gap are still there for the vast majority of our students. Especially our students of low socioeconomic status, our Black and Brown students. We have to work to make sure that their data points are trending upward. So I think that those data points can really help inform, as one piece of the puzzle, how we need to allocate resources in the district, be they financial, how we need to add professional staff to certain areas, perhaps autism programming, perhaps additional speech language pathologists, perhaps additional supports to make sure that all of our students are fully supported. And my views on using student achievement data to formally evaluate educators, I think solely using that to evaluate an educator would be borderline unethical, because there's many things that goes into that data. I think it can be used as a data point that goes along with the teacher submitted evidence and numerous evaluations and observations throughout the course of the year by well-trained evaluators. I think that using achievement data to start conversations is critical. And I'll share as a principal conversation that I had with one of my math teachers when I presented him his math data from the previous year. And his answer was, Peter, what do you expect me to do? These kids can't do that. And this is a person whose nieces and nephews went through the district, who had been in the district, was a coach for us on athletic teams, represented the blue and white really well. I used that comment to work with him over the full year to help coach him to become a better math educator, to help coach him to do that. But I think if I had put that formally in his evaluation, I would have shut off that educator. I would have turned him off to actually seeing the opportunity to improve. And I invested in professional development for him. I invested in him going to math conferences, to learning how to be a better math instructor. And he was the better for it. And at the end of the year, he goes, so can you stop bringing it up? And I said, you tell me, can I stop bringing it up? I think that the data is really important, but to put it in a formal evaluation, I think could open us up to certain potential arbitration and other things that might taint the overall observation, supervision, and evaluation process. So while it's important, I would like to see it be just one piece of the data to inform an overall decision.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're almost at 9 o'clock. We have two more formal questions, and then we want to leave time for you to have closing remarks. Dr. Silva, would you bring question 13 to the table?
Okay, thank you. What does a successful district look like to you, and how would you define success over a short-term and long-term period?
This is such a great question, Dr. Silva. Thank you. So a successful district to me looks like where kids want to go to school, where kids are excited to be with their teachers, where they are thrilled to be a part of the band or part of an art class or be part of an athletic team. That there's a saying going around in athletic circles right now, play where you live, all right? I think play where you live goes to music instruments and all the other things that schools do. I think, in all honesty, a successful district, when the superintendent, Rosalie Weiss, asked me to take over the middle school, and I told you earlier I had no business being a middle school principal, she said, I don't care about the learning at this point. I want kids to want to be there. And we went from being south of 20 kids on school choice, losing many of our own students, which is more important to keep than recruiting school choice. All right. We went to being 100 plus on school choice, plus keeping Narragansett's own there. That's a successful district. When your students and your families aren't looking at other options, that's success. When your students see greatness, when they look in the mirror of what they're doing academically, athletically, social, emotionally, and supporting their fellow students, that's success. I think defining success over the short term really is about bringing teachers and all staff back to the table. It's about healing and growing. It's about making sure that we have engaging conversations that lead to actionable steps to heal and grow the district. It's making sure that in the short term, they're being provided the professional development resources, that any red tape that is preventing them from accessing classes is cut or eliminated, to making sure that we are supporting our educators as best as possible. There may be times that we have to push back as leaders, but we should be able to listen and try to action step our way through this so it's clear, transparent, and well received. I also think, and going back to early literacy, I can't stress enough how early literacy and having students achieve quality reading by grade 3 is so fundamentally critical to the long-term success and health of schools and districts. Making sure that they are able to read information that is presented to them, it can't be understated as to its importance. I'm a firm believer in what the science of reading is telling us, in phonemic awareness, and making sure that our students are well supported. Over the long run, I think success looks like a district that is able to justify its expenses, that it's able to make sure the electorate knows that they're getting a high quality product for the money that they're investing. And finally, that it's students who graduate talking with pride and with love about the black and orange, that they firmly believe that it's a great day to be a Panther, that they look for ways to live in their community so that their children can have the same experiences that they had, and that they help to make it a true sense of community, a true sense of how we are really growing as a community. That's how I define success in the short and the long term, and what it looks like to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Our last formal question is, how do you think parents in the community you've served would best describe your leadership and approach? Beyond attending school events, what are some ways you plan to connect with and engage Beverly's families, especially those who might not have always been involved in school activities?
Thank you, President Abel. I think the families and the communities that I've served would describe my leadership style as a servant leader, or they would say, Peter's there for us. When it was 7 o'clock at night and we had an issue, we saw his car in the parking lot and we rang the doorbell and we had a conversation with him. That I gave out my cell phone, my personal cell phone number to families, call me anytime. I think that there are 5 or 6 families in Beverly, because last week I actively reached out to people through Ipswich families, and I've sat down and already met with families in Beverly. I forgot to mention that earlier. I felt that as a superintendent candidate, it was really critical for me to reach out and to try to connect with families. And I've done that. I met with, president of the PTO and people who are involved, and have spoken to numerous members in the community, because I want that to be a hallmark of who I am, because it's who I am. People shouldn't see their superintendent as removed from the daily operations. They should see their superintendent as someone that they can reach out to. And while I may have to redirect to people to say, like, well, have you had this conversation with the assistant principal, or have you had this conversation with the teacher, or have you had this conversation with the principal, whoever it may be, the reality is that they should be able to approach me. And I appreciate when people call me Dr. Cushing, but I haven't cracked a chest, and I don't want to be standoffish or aloof from people. And I want people to really feel a connection. What's nice is I'm only 15 minutes away in Ipswich. We tried to buy a house here, but we were outbid on 5 properties, and it crushed our soul. There's one on Douglas Ave that I still drive by, and I'm like, oh man, that was my dream house. I will say, though, that I am someone who doesn't just attend events. I'm a presence at events. I believed in announcing student games. I believed in announcing senior nights. My wife thought I was crazy when less than 36 hours after having major hip surgery, I had her drive me to the basketball senior night so that I could limp into the gym and announce the students, because there was no one else who did it. All right. I believe in being a part of student life at every level. So connecting with families, I spoke about this earlier. You have my entry plan. I believe in setting up coffee hours in the mornings, dessert hours in the evening. I believe in checking in and connecting with the Rotarians in Beverly or whoever it may be, faith-based leaders, finding ways to connect with families where they are, not expecting them to come to the castle of the school. Many families may not be involved in school activities, not just because life is so busy right now, but maybe because their school experience was really negative. Their school experience marginalized them. Their school experience wasn't positive. I have to work with our staff to make sure that we change that we flip that narrative, and that we create a Beverly Public Schools where people feel so proud, so engaged. I actually invite, if there are any of the families, because word got out in my previous communities, so I hope some people are watching. Feel free to reach out to the school committee and let them know the type of leader I was for you. The outpouring of families when I left my principal roles really stunned me. It really stunned me because I felt I had a connection, but I was the guy from the North Shore going to rural North Central Massachusetts. And I think one of the things a parent told me as I was leaving was, he goes, Peter, you didn't try to change us, you just tried to make us better. And I think that's something really important. So thank you for that opportunity to answer that question. I'll move into the closing statement that I promise I'll keep brief.
Please do. Thanks.
I am so excited for this opportunity. I believe that I have developed leadership skills. I believe that I've failed at times in my career, but I've worked with staff, students, and caregivers to learn from my mistakes and to improve and grow. I believe in taking feedback. I believe in an approach, as I talked earlier, about raising the bar every day to try to improve myself every day. The last thing I'll say is I would work tirelessly for the staff and students of Beverly to help collaboratively make this not only the best district on the North Shore, but a flagship district for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you all so much for your time tonight, and I really appreciate it.
My bad. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
I'm so
I guess
tired, I
that-
forgot the word.
Second.
That is the next step. So thank you so much for spending time in our district today and for spending time with us and giving us the opportunity to get to know you better. The committee will adjourn at this time, and we will meet again next on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Thank you so much. So motion to adjourn from Ms.
Motion to adjourn.
Bisnick. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, everybody wants to get out of here. Okay. I'm just going to write down Karen just because I had already written the K. I guess I could have applied that to a couple of people here. All those in favor of adjournment at 9:07 p.m. We now stand adjourned. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, BevCam. Thank you for people that are watching at home. Do look for the survey link to provide feedback. The school committee will be reviewing that on Wednesday and Thursday before we meet again Thursday evening. Thank you so much.
I'm about to go be sleepless myself.